Today, we're going to talk about the biggest remote work news story of 2023 so far. If you're a remote worker and you haven't heard of Carly Bessie, you owe it to yourself to watch this episode because she's at the center of a landmark court decision that sets a precedent for remote workers everywhere. If you ever get caught in a dispute with your employer about what you were doing on company time, it's highly likely that this case is going to affect what happens to you. So here's what you need to know. Carly had a remote job at an accounting firm in British Columbia, Canada. When they let her go after 5 months, she sued them for wrongful termination. But her former employer told the tribunal Bessie had logged more than 50 hours that did not appear to have been spent on work-related tasks, citing evidence from Timetheft, which is a surveillance app that tracked her activities while she was on the clock. There are some disputed details around whether or not that time was mislabeled on purpose or by accident, but the important part is she lost, and she was ordered to repay the time back to her employer. This ruling got a ton of media coverage because it appears to be the first ruling of its kind. And the term that's been coined for it is time theft. Just look at this chart showing search trends for time theft over the last 5 years. That spike at the end? That's all because of Carly Bessie. But it was only a matter of time. The Guardian published data last year indicating that 60% of companies with remote workers had implemented some kind of quote-unquote bossware, and 9 out of 10 of those had terminated someone since doing so. And people get really worked up about this topic, and I will probably get some hate mail from both sides after this episode, but time theft and bossware may well be the most important conversation affecting the future of work right now. So in this episode, we're going to attempt to strip out all of that emotion and focus on the facts. And then I'm going to get personal. Some of my friends think I'm crazy because I'm willing to work for a company that takes a photo of me every 10 minutes, and they wouldn't be. I just know some of you are probably recoiling as you think about it. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It is hard. But for me, there's no question that the pros outweigh the cons, and in a minute, I will tell you exactly why. This is Out of Office, episode 25. So, let's begin here with 2 objective truths. I have the right to do whatever the hell I want in my own home. I do not have the right to do whatever the hell I want when I'm on the clock and my boss is paying me. The entire time theft and bossware conversation lies somewhere between those 2 truths. And everyone can agree that the extremes are both bad, right? I mean, nobody thinks a company should be forced to pay somebody that plays PlayStation every afternoon instead of working. And nobody thinks that employees should be watched when they're home alone and not on company time. That would be creepy. Nobody wants that. But now that the line between workplace and home has been blurred, both sides are painting the other as though they are defending one of those terrible extremes. But here are some more objective truths. Most employees are good people who work hard every day, whether their office is 10 feet from their boss or 10 feet from their brand new PlayStation 5, which just got delivered after all those delays. But some people suck. They just can't resist that temptation. And in an office, their boss would know, and he could do something about it, and that's simply not true at home. So that's why when people say this, their boss hears this. And when bosses say, what workers hear is this. And this reaches a stalemate that cannot be resolved with objective facts. There will never be a consensus about something as important and subjective as how much trust is the right amount. Too much trust is time theft. Too little trust is bossware. But how much trust is just right? Everybody's got a different answer, and that makes sense because there's so much nuance around the type of work, the type of people, and the trust that has or hasn't already been accumulated. Every person who wants to work remotely and every company who wants to hire them is going to have to figure out where they're going to stand on this issue. How much trust is it reasonable for them to expect, and where are they going to personally draw the line between privacy and surveillance? I can't tell you where your line should be because there's no objective answer to that. And it goes without saying, nobody should be subjected to monitoring that they haven't consented to. Companies must be transparent about that so people can make up their own minds. And nobody in their right mind would choose to be monitored if they had a choice, right? But everybody has a price. And what would make it worth it for you? For me, there are 3 incentives that would make it worth my while. And that's if the job paid at least 20% more than the other jobs I had available to me, if it was a better role than anything else out there, and if it offered me complete flexibility to choose my own hours and location of work. That's something I'd never had before when I found this job on Crossover 2 years ago. It ticked all these boxes. I just moved from New York to New Zealand, and in this market, any other job would have meant a pay drop. But I'll admit I was nervous. There were 3 deal breakers that would have led me to run for the hills. And firstly, I'm willing to prove that I stayed focused all day by allowing occasional selfies and screenshots, but only while I'm getting paid. Never ever on personal time, and only on stills, not a full video feed. Secondly, I wanted to see the photos and screenshots that were captured and delete them if they caught anything I didn't want my boss to see. And lastly, having just come from a workplace where I would get dinged for being 4 minutes late even if I had stayed at my desk until 10 p.m. the night before, I was not willing to be micromanaged based on my time cards. As long as I worked hard, stayed on task, and prioritized my workflow as efficiently as I always have in every other job, that had to be enough. Ultimately, I want to be judged on the quality of my output, not the quantity of my input. And now when I look back on those things after 2 years, all of those incentives were true, and none of the deal breakers ever happened. So I'm really glad that I was able to see past my knee-jerk fear of being monitored in my own home, and realize that it may be hard, but it's not that hard. And there's never been a single day that I regretted my decision to say yes. So as you decide where you fall on this issue personally, my advice would be to look past the knee-jerk reaction. The best things in life are rarely easy. So stop asking yourself if it's hard and start asking yourself if it's worth it. Don't sign up for anything you're not okay with, but don't rule yourself out of a great opportunity either. Unless you're planning to play PlayStation all day or do whatever the heck Carly Bessie was doing, in which case I wish you the best of luck in finding either a clueless boss or a decent lawyer. That's all we have time for this week. Let me know in those comments what incentives would make you willing to accept a job that required productivity monitoring software. Is your bar higher or lower than mine is? There's no wrong answer, but feel free to call me out if you hated mine. I'm Andrew Ellen, and the future of work is out of office.